4, 3. Okay. Hello and welcome to Absolute Trust Talk. I am Kirsten Howe. I'm the host today of Absolute Trust Talk, which is our video podcast at Absolute Trust Council. We're very glad to have you here. We're going to be talking today about what my guest calls lifestyle insurance. So just to kind of tee that up a little bit, what would happen to your family if the primary income earner suddenly became disabled and couldn't work for an extended period of time? Or what if they died? How would that affect the day-to-day life of your family? And this is what we're exactly going to be talking about today. I think that a lot of people don't think that through carefully enough. They don't have an adequate plan for covering that kind of possibility, and really never even thought that it never occurred to them that they needed it. And I find that a lot in talking to my clients. So today we're going to cover that, hopefully get you a little more education on that. I'm going to just remind you, if this first time you're watching, if you have questions and you're watching us live, feel free to type your questions into the comment area on Facebook or wherever you're watching, and we will answer them as we get to the end of the conversation. If you're not watching live, I'm sorry. You'll just have to listen to other people's questions. But you can always send a question to us at info@absolutetrustcouncil.com. Okay, that's the housekeeping out of the way. My guest today, I'm very delighted to have him here. I've known him for a number of years now and have, mutual clients that we've helped in the past. And so he's my life insurance go-to guy, is Todd Wellnitz, who is the founder of WellGuard Insurance and Financial. Todd has a BA in marketing from the University of Hawaii. And since 2004, he has specialized in assisting seniors, and he is recognized nationally and internationally for his continued commitment to helping his clients achieve their goals. He's a certified long-term care specialist. He's also pretty active in the volunteer space. He's with the Rotary Club in Alameda. He's, served in president capacity. He's active in the Alameda Boys and Girls Club. He's on their board, and just a all-around great guy. I will say that. So, Todd, thank you so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Kirsten. It's great to be here.
Good. All right. So I dropped that term into the introduction, lifestyle insurance. Why don't we hear from you what you mean by that?
Well, thank you. We think people's lifestyles are very personal to them. And so we want to make sure that our clients have that lifestyle protected in case life shows up in a wrong way. So what we do is we want to protect that lifestyle, and we use some insurance tools to do that, such as disability insurance, life insurance, long-term care insurance, and some income annuities. So these are stabilization tools for their financial future so they can sleep better at night.
Okay. And lifestyle insurance covers a variety of different types of insurance that come into play depending on what it is that has happened in the client's life. And we'll go into those sort of individually. But I think one thing I want to kind of approach with you is your company is WellGuard Insurance and Financial, but I think a very important point to make is that you don't work for an insurance company.
We're fully independent. Yeah, we're a fully independent broker.
Okay. And that's important because, well, I know why, but you go ahead and say why.
So why that's important to your listeners is I have no obligation to sell any insurance company's product. That means I have no quota. So there's no big insurance company in my email domain. There's no big company on my wall that I have to provide certain number of policies to. So really what we try to translate to the consumer is our job is to make them look as attractive to the right insurance company as possible so we can get more money for their family from the big insurance company. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think maybe the flip side of that is that um, you can pick and choose from a variety of insurance companies what's the best for this particular client in this particular situation. It's not,
Right?
this is my insurance company. I got to find a way to sell you their product. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
we don't show up with just a hammer and think everything's a nail.
Right.
We show up with a toolbox, and based on people's age and health and situations,
Yeah.
we align them with the best solution.
Right. It might be a hammer. It might be a crowbar. It's just, it kind of depends. Okay. So
Lots of duct
that's
tape.
duct tape. That's my go-to tool also. Um, all right. So when I first asked you to join me on this today, one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about was disability insurance, because I feel as though a lot of people don't really look at that at all. We all kind of have a sense of, if you have kids, you need life insurance. That's pretty standard knowledge, but I don't think a lot of people really focus on disability insurance. Why don't you go ahead and comment on that
Well,
statement?
so there's a couple things that are pretty important in life. Oxygen is one. Income is a very close second.
Yeah.
So we just ask people, just out of curiosity, what percentage of your income does your family or business depend on every single month? And I bet you can imagine that number is usually pretty high. And so we simply ask, what guarantees, certainties do you have that that paycheck will come in if you're not able to work? And it helps them kind of think, well, maybe it's my home equity, maybe it's my portfolio. Well, what if we could leverage an insurance carrier company to then provide that, whether it's a depression, anxiety situation, whether it's a longer term disability.
Yeah.
um, but I know that we have wonderful lifestyles that we like to live in the Bay Area, and unfortunately a lot of that will significantly change if the income stops
Right.
unannounced.
Right. Yeah. So you can sit down with somebody and figure that out. Okay, this is, if your income went away, um, this is how much your salary went away. This is how much you really need in order to get by the way you would like to. And we
Right.
got to find a way to make sure that doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll probably talk about some rule of thumbs, but with disability insurance, based on your job class,
Uh-huh.
whether you're an attorney, a doctor, depending on what your job class is, there's a maximum amount based on your total income, bonus, and as well as salary. So it's, instead of, like, when we talk about life insurance, some people say, oh, I want this much.
Yeah.
When it comes to disability insurance, we go right to, here's the most you can receive.
Okay.
And then we kind of work down, what do you have? So if they can get 30,000 a month in disability income, but they have 5, then we help show that linear relationship to the amount of money that can be replaced. But there's definitely a cap in terms of the most amount of disability they can receive.
Okay. And that's linked to their compensation.
Exactly.
Like, okay, so if I make 10,000 a month, the insurance company isn't going to cover me for 30,000 a month.
Exactly.
Right.
Wouldn't that be great?
I know. Then you could quit your job.
There you go. Yeah. So domestically, when we're looking at insurance carriers in the United States, it's usually 45% of the income.
Okay.
Where if we need higher income earners, we're talking doctors, et cetera, then we can start looking into the European marketplace where we can get an additional 20%.
Okay.
But, the max is pretty much 65%. Most times you're capped out at 45%. And again, this is a income tax-free benefit.
Okay. Yeah. So if you're only able to get 45%, don't forget about the fact that you're not paying 35% to state and federal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is not something that is tied to your workplace. We're talking individual personal coverage that you can take because, again, your lifestyle, your family is probably someone you want to take care of, while you're working. And of course, as you know, like the benefits will end around, depending on how it's structured, a certain amount of time or pretty much age 65, 67. So it's a working while I'm working type of benefit.
Yeah. Okay. And there's a lot of, I'm guessing there's variables, customization. It really depends on what this particular client needs and wants.
Absolutely.
And
We
is
show,
able to pay for. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
it's not cheap. It's not free.
absolutely.
It's not free.
Exactly, and it's kind of one of those things, right? It's like, if someone's going to buy a car and they want to pay extra for the top to go down as a convertible, well, we want to make sure, okay, you're going to pay extra for that rider, that additional, benefit. But we frankly ask them, okay, if you buy the convertible, will you ever take the top down? And if they say no, I'm like, well, why are we going to let you pay for the extra? You know, don't own a boat if you're never taking it out on the water. So we do, as
Right.
from a consultative standpoint, we also want to make sure that this is not an expense, that this is a purchase. They see the value in what they own because
Right.
it's not mine, it's theirs. And I really want to make sure they understand why they're paying a certain amount of money to
Yeah.
then protect that income, which again, next to oxygen, I don't know what else is more important.
More important. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Because it leads to all the other important things like food,
Yes,
electricity.
mortgage,
Yeah.
rent, yeah, gasoline.
Okay. Okay. Um, so let's move on and talk a little bit about life insurance. Um, now, I think most people understand some basics of life insurance. The idea is when you die, the insurance company pays money to the people that you ask them to pay it to in exchange for you paying the premiums. But there's more to it than that. People can use life insurance, some kinds of life insurance, while they're alive.
Absolutely. Yeah, believe it or not, you could be the beneficiary of your own
Of
life
your own
insurance.
policy. Okay.
Yep. So
So
very good point. And the type of life insurance people oftentimes think of is permanent life insurance, the one that will permanently be there whenever you pass in the future.
yeah.
Um, and then there's temporary life insurance. It comes in the form of term life insurance. So it's for a period of time, whether, how long you're working at your current job because they're paying for it, or 10 years or 20 years. Like, hey, let's get the kids out of the house. Let's get them through college. Those are temporary needs we want to take care of. So
Right. Right.
neither one is better than the other. They just have either temporary or permanent solutions that they're
Yeah.
taking care of.
Yeah. It depends
So
on what they need. Yeah.
exactly. And so, not to get too complicated, but sometimes we'll step someone into a less expensive temporary solution, and then we can convert it, turn it into a permanent solution, oftentimes based on budget. And the good news is when they turn it on in a few years to the permanent policy, they don't have to reapply based on health.
Or
So
they
we've
don't.
locked in their
Oh,
health. Exactly. We've
at
locked
the
in their
younger
health.
age, at the young, healthy age.
Right. So, not that you want that stroke or heart attack to show up in your life, but heaven forbid something happens, we turn it to a
A
permanent
permanent
solution.
policy.
And the insurance company, it stays within the insurance company. They're not going to ask any health questions.
Oh, that's
Um,
fascinating. Okay. I
and when we're talking about like why people will actually use life insurance while they're living, is yes, they have a family component that they want for, pass on the wealth.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, one of the biggest features that people aren't real they don't understand is long-term care insurance kind of changing in the marketplace to where they can accelerate the death benefit, meaning call it $1 million death benefit and somebody needs, $50,000 a year because they had a stroke, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, heart attack. They will accelerate or reduce that death benefit and pay it to the individual while they're living for care. And it's
Right.
tax free. You can also do that for maybe you want tax exempt income. You don't want to pay federal or state income taxes. And so you can find specialists like ourselves that can show you the tax code where you can actually use that life insurance policy for tax free income planning and retirement.
Oh, okay. Okay. Um, All right. So you made up, well, you didn't exactly make the point, but I think it needs to be made when you were talking about some, people have life insurance that's temporary because it's linked to a job. And those policies generally are term policies, and you only have them for as long as you have that job, which is another kind of gap, I think, in maybe people's awareness. Because I ask clients, do you have life insurance policies? And many of them who have jobs will say, oh, yeah, I have something through my employer, which is great. It's better than nothing. But if you leave that job, let's say because you've become disabled, or you just move to another job, or you lose your job, you don't have
Yeah.
life insurance anymore.
It's a very good point. So whenever we're talking with someone and we're evaluating what their current planning looks like, let's say I have $500,000 from my current employer.
Mhm.
We usually sit down with the family. We work with individuals, couples. We'll kind of put that like life insurance from the workplace on the side. Because, let's say it's a female. I'll say, I'm sure your significant other, husband, partner would be okay with that extra $500,000 showing up, heaven forbid you pass, while you're working.
Right.
Reality is, you're probably not hanging out waiting for your gold watch, when you retire
Right.
from that company.
Right.
So let's plan as if you may be moving on to a bigger, better opportunity. And it's just a framing method, because oftentimes when we go real quick to back to disability, it's like people, well, I got workers' comp, I've got this, I got that. Well, if you're injured doing something within your job description, yes. But if you carry a box out to your coworker's car and throw your back out, that's not a workers' comp claim. So we're kind of having to
Yeah.
help folks kind of understand limitations. So
Yeah. Or you fall skiing and you're injured and you can't work for a while.
bingo.
Clearly, workers' comp won't cover that. So that's where
Absolutely.
that's where private.
Absolutely. And think about it. We're both in the Northern California, wonderful place to live, hiking, biking, skiing, you name it, surfing. Those are all activities that I don't think currently you or I make an income from. But we like to do.
Oh,
So
you
people,
haven't heard about my snowboarding career?
no. Your bungee jumping campaign? No. So yeah, we talk about little things like that. Accidents happen. We're 3 times more likely to become disabled before dying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's another point that I think escapes people's awareness is on any given day, you're much more likely to become disabled than
oh,
die. It until you get into there's a age at which that flips, I'm sure. I don't know what it is, but I hope it's not my age.
no.
I think I'm still under that age. Sorry for you folks at home. I just crashed my microphone. I get too excited, I guess. Anyway, okay. So you mentioned the concept of a rule of thumb. So in talking about life insurance, what kind of rules of thumb would you want to share with our listeners?
Absolutely. So if we're talking about, kind of replacing income, using life insurance for primarily just the death benefit,
Yeah.
and protecting the lifestyle, at a minimum, it's 10 times their current income. So if someone's making $100,000 a year, we're looking at $1 million
They should have
death
a
benefit.
million.
Again, rule of thumb, others say up to 20 times. What's very interesting is I have a client that is in Texas and they make $500,000 a year. So as we're creating this rule of thumb, his spouse actually had a question like, wow, $500,000 times 10, $5 million. Now, this would be the person that would benefit from this. That just seems like a lot of life insurance. I have a lot of friends that they get like 1 million, maybe 1.5 million. And so again, rule of thumb,
Yeah.
we're very conservative. So we say, well, if you're making $100,000 or $150,000 a year, that could work for that person to have 1 million or 1.5 million death benefit. Your lifestyle is $500,000. So again,
Right.
rule of thumb, purchase what you want, But because there's no how much life insurance to buy school or a handbook on how much disability insurance, these are just kind of some starting points.
Right.
And when it comes to disability insurance, we say a minimum 5 years, 5 times your income, which
Okay.
means a benefit that will pay out a minimum of 5 years.
Okay. Okay. So
That-
that's very helpful. Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
The,
interrupt
the
you.
only other rule of thumb we usually use is retirement. Hey, put away 20% of your income for retirement. Again, rule of thumb, where you put that's up to you. We don't do anything on Wall Street, but we do build these tax-free retirement programs. But again, those are the rule of thumb. So just for the listeners, 10 times your income for life insurance death benefit, 5 times your income for disability insurance, and 20% of your income should be going
You
towards
should be sucking that away
the
somehow.
future.
Yeah. That's really clear. Thank you. Very helpful. But what I want to just point out to you or reiterate or anyway, something that I sometimes come up against with my clients is, let's say we have a married couple and they have children, and one spouse is the income earner and the other one is not an income earner. And so we're talking about a rule of thumb of, 10 times your income, but the spouse who is not earning any money for the work that he or she does, I think also needs life insurance.
Absolutely. And that's definitely, obviously you're very wise because you see these blind spots. And all we do is we just say, okay, Mrs. CFO, your husband's a stay-at-home dad with the 3 kids shuttling around in the minivan. And, if we had to replace all of his roles he plays to support the family, what would that be?
What would that cost? Yeah.
Believe it or not, it's going to be in at least $100,000.
A year. Yeah.
Food prep,
Mhm.
child care. If we had to itemize every skill set that he fills, it's a lot more money than people think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's right. And that the spouse who stays at home is enabling the spouse to go to work and earn that big paycheck. And
And the
that's
funny thing is, Kirsten, is that spouse that's the big income earner, if they had to do some of those things just to help out fill in, oh boy, they know those are tough to do, right?
very true. Good point. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about long-term care insurance because that's another area where you are really expert, and I know that for sure. So I know that you kind of talked a little bit about it a while back, but the world of long-term care insurance has changed over the last, I don't know how long, 10 years, 15 years, but there are more different kinds of products, maybe more attractive products out there. Why don't you talk just a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, back in the late 70s, early 80s, all the health insurance carriers, they saw all the wave of baby boomers coming and they said, "Oh my gosh, if we had to take care of them for the rest of their life in healthcare, we'll all go bankrupt." So they carved out what's called long-term care, extended care, more than 90 days worth of care. So their health insurance will take care of about 3 months. Medicare is going to help out for a little bit more. After that, we're pretty much on our own. It is privatized.
Yeah.
So that's how the industry came about. And the policies were just use it or lose it. Kind of like house and car insurance, right? If your house doesn't burn down, you don't have a flood, and you live there 50 years and you pass away, do you really expect money back? No.
No.
It's
Right.
just what if, right?
Mhm.
Well, then all those insurance carriers, company executives that all sat in the room together trying to figure out pricing goofed up. So now they've had these kind of price increases. So the long and short is insurance companies decided we need to change the technology. What if people could pay into something and whether they use it or not, the family will benefit? Well, that comes in the form of a life insurance policy with a long term care rider, which means you can accelerate that death benefit for long term care. So, somebody has a policy, let's say it's a $500,000 death benefit that they can accelerate if they're needed for care. Let's say they need $100,000 worth of care, then they pass away. The insurance company says 500,000 death benefit minus 100,000 equals 400,000 to the
400.
family. Whether you need it all or none of it, I just let my clients know, hey, you didn't screw up. You can't screw this up.
Right.
What you're
Yeah.
doing is you're insulating that lifestyle for your family. You don't have to freak out. What do we have to do? Sell
Yeah.
stocks, liquidate the properties. We have a little policy on the side that buys us some time.
Yeah. And that is a very important point, is that paying for long-term care can really severely impact a family's lifestyle.
Mhm.
$10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month.
Yep.
Not many families can sustain that for very long without really, feeling the pain. And so what I love about these new types of products is you're going to get it. You're going to get your money no matter what. If
Yep.
you use it for long-term care, that's great. If you don't, your family gets a death benefit.
Right.
One way or the other,
And
you're getting it.
exactly. And you're always going to get out of the policy more than you even put in. It's just leverage. It's your health,
Right.
So of course, there are some qualifications, health
Oh,
wise.
yeah. Yeah.
And so, we have some solutions where if, maybe someone's health isn't working out in their benefit, again, we're going to go out to the marketplace. We're going to find any option possible for them in terms of this traditional hybrid life long-term care policy. And then if for some reason they can't get the coverage because of their health, we don't make any judgments, but what we do is we also have some income annuities where if they did have a long-term care event, the income they receive will increase by either 50 or 100% to help pay for the care. So there's other solutions, but again, we don't judge anybody that comes to us. We just try to find the best solution for the
Yeah, yeah,
family.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. And that, I'm glad you brought that up, because that particular type of insurance product, the income annuity to solve that long-term care, I had never heard of that you have these annuities that will increase their benefit because
Yep.
you have a long-term care event. I think that's fascinating. That's a
Well, good.
really nice solution for people. And is the underwriting different on that?
There's no medical underwriting.
No medical underwriting.
Nope.
Okay.
So when you work with an independent broker that has the ability to pivot based on the original need, where the solution lies, then we identify there's insurance companies that offer these income annuities, fixed annuities. You can never outlive the income, and they have an enhancement that's built in. And so we'll show the client, here's these companies that will pay you out guaranteed X amount per month per year. Here's a couple that'll increase that if you have a health challenge. So it's always on the consumer's end that they make the purchase.
Yeah.
They're never sold anything. But again, the technology changes, and I highly, highly recommend find an independent insurance broker in your community, because sometimes just because insurance people can sell multiple things for all your different insurance needs, they may not have a menu deep enough to offer these kinds of
Right.
unique solutions.
Right. Yeah. That is, I, as I'm saying this, talking to you in preparing for this episode, yes, I prepare. That was the first time I heard about those, where you can get that long-term care enhancement, which, what a terrific solution for somebody who really can't get insurance traditionally because of medical issues. That's really good to know. That's really good to know. Thank you. Okay. So I am going to turn now to our chat, or our comment section. And I know we have some questions in here, but I have to scroll up and find them. So just bear with me. Okay, here's a question. If you are an employee and become disabled, you can get state disability payments in some circumstances. And if there's also a private insurance policy, how do those two work together? Do you get both benefits? How does that work?
So let me just make sure I understand the question. So we're an employee at a company with a state disability, and then that individual has their own individual
Well,
disability policy,
it doesn't
or
say. The
okay,
question, it could be the company provides a policy or could be the individual has a private policy. So
yeah. So
if you know how those work.
regardless of political affiliation, this comes down to math. There's a lot of people knocking on the door to get state disability, Social Security disability.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I am very familiar, and I know Kirsten is also. If someone applies for Social Security disability, 99% of the time they get rejected.
It's turned down. Yeah.
So the point is they're trying to protect the state government from fraudulent claims.
Sure.
So all I can tell your listener is, if you expect the state disability to be there, you may need a time horizon of 2 years or more. So it is a lengthy process. And depending on how the policy is set up at your employer, or if it's a private independent policy like we offer, there's going to be language in there. And so I don't do employee benefit type things. If
Mhm,
your listener wants someone to look at it, we do have experts we work with. I can tell you this: if that person had an individual policy,
mhm.
we put the language in, which you pay for, but we put the language in that if there's other income, it's not going to interfere with the disability payout. So
Okay.
here's the specific the answer real quick. An attorney makes a few $100,000 a year, but then gets disabled and cannot do his or her job as an attorney. Okay, the disability is going to be paid out. We're going to make sure that if that attorney decides to go, talk at law school, be a professor, or write a book, any additional income will not take away from their disability income payout. But you got to be very careful, because other cheaper policies that maybe people don't know well, if that attorney goes out and has a book deal and makes extra money, well, that book deal income is subtracted
It's
from the
it's
disability
gonna eat
payout.
away. Yeah.
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 So the quick answer is, state disability is not always there for quick answers. I mean, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
So if you need something in the meantime, I would definitely look at something that's not a state benefit.
Okay. That that was a very thorough answer to, that question, which was a little vague, so thank you for that.
Mhm.
Okay. What about a oh, here we go. A stay-at-home parent, is there disability insurance available for them? I maybe that now we're getting into long-term care insurance.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
not not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Where I would pivot to is, again, more of a life insurance policy that
Yeah.
could have a chronic critical illness, heart attack, stroke, kind of a thing. Again, we got to be real careful with the definitions around that. But the idea is how can we access money for a concern, and
Mhm.
ultimately, let's hope they don't get disabled, and then they have a pool of money that the IRS doesn't touch when they need it to supplement their income. But to just specifically answer that, um, when we're looking at disability insurance, they're
Right.
looking at W-2 income.
It's about
Uh,
replacing income,
yeah,
which
and they're looking at
yeah.
some formalized 1099 W-2 income tax returns. So I would probably say that there's nothing out there for a stay-at-home
Yeah.
parent.
Yeah. They'd
Yeah,
have to look at some other type of
yeah,
coverage, which wouldn't be called disability insurance. Yeah.
right.
Okay. Okay. I think I have one more question in here for you. Where did it just go? Oh, this is something that I kind of have wondered about. Is it a good idea to buy life insurance on a child? As I see clients
Ironically,
who have that, they'll say, "Oh yeah, my grandmother bought me an insurance policy when I was a baby."
this is the irony. Since COVID, I don't know what's going on, but there's been this spike in increase of policies being purchased on kids by parents and grandparents. I say I don't know what's going on because I'm thinking, where are they getting their information from? It's a very, 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 very valuable planning tool
Oh,
because they don't do blood tests and urine test. There's very little underwriting, if at all, for a minor.
ah,
So what are we doing? We're locking in a very low cost of insurance, right? The younger we are, the cheaper it is because the less risk.
sure.
And what happens if the health changes in that child? You now have locked in that age. I don't know how much they're going to maybe purchase on the individuals, but the idea is I've had some parents as well as grandparents spend $20,000 a year for 5 years to
Uh,
lock in a permanent policy, not for death benefit. They want as much of the money to grow cash tax free.
yeah.
And the reason they want that is they're concerned about the financial future for their child or grandchild.
Okay.
So what they're doing is instead of gifting money and buying cars or fun stuff, or they're really setting up a policy that can benefit income tax free to them way down the road. Maybe they do have a long-term care event or they have a heart attack. Maybe their health changes. But the one thing I wanted to mention is when you talk to clients about like long-term care, if we go back to that, I just ask them what part of your portfolio is earmarked for some event that you don't expect or want to have happen, but could implode your estate.
Right.
So now this child is getting the benefit of the wisdom of the parent or grandparent that they can build a tool that we would set up for them that can accelerate the benefit to then protect their future. So life insurance, by the way, the form that we're talking about, tax-free income, is so underutilized. Wall Street doesn't offer it. There's not enough fees. So that's why people don't hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would highly welcome any type of conversation around gifting and who owns the policy. If it's a minor, we're very familiar with, structuring that properly.
Okay. I'm glad that question was asked because I've always wondered about that. What is the benefit to doing that? And it sounds like it can be a substantial benefit.
Here we go. Here's a couple 5-year-olds or 4-year-olds, and the grandparent says maybe in 20, 25 years, they want to buy a house. Well, they can use some of the
Now they
cash
can use some of
value in their policy as a down payment.
Sure.
It's an
Yeah.
asset. I mean, so
Right.
there's a lot of value. And what we try to help kind of consult our clients on is, here are the different ways it can be used. What makes sense to you?
Yeah.
A lot of times they don't even know that there's 4 or 5 options, kind of like the things we talked about today.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
out there. But again, if certain financial firms can't make money, they're not going to tell you about it.
Mm-hmm. Very good point. Okay. I don't see any other questions. So I'm just going to say thank you, Todd. This has been very informative for me. I'm hoping that our listeners learned a lot, but I know I did. There's so many things about what you do that I had no idea. And now I'm very grateful. I hope I can use that to help my clients and to have you help my clients. So thanks so much for being here.
I appreciate it, Kirsten. And for those listeners that haven't engaged an estate planning attorney in a while, I hope the absolute first place you go is Absolute Trust Counsel.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you, our listeners, for being here today. Like I said, I hope you learned a lot. I know I did. And I very much look forward to connecting with you next time.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Absolute Trust Talk Live. If you enjoyed listening in, then don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen by searching Absolute Trust Talk. While you're there, we would also love for you to leave us a review. And then why not share your favorite episodes with family, friends, or colleagues too? You can find all of our shows and corresponding show notes by visiting absolutetrustcounsel.com. You'll also find a variety of other free resources, including our ebooks, videos, blogs, presentations, and more. If you need help with your estate planning or administration, we also offer a free discovery call to help get the process started. You can find more information on booking your session by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com/scheduling. Don't forget to keep an eye out for our next live episode in 2 weeks. If you join us for the broadcast, you can submit questions during the show. But if not, don't worry. You can always get in touch with us by sending a quick message to info@absolutetrustcouncil.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon.